Imagine being 13 years old. You are wildly in love with your first boyfriend. You are thriving in every aspect of your life. But all of a sudden, everything gets turned on its head when you begin to receive hateful, crass, incessant, and abusive text messages from unknown numbers.
You are the ugliest person I've ever seen.
Not only are you receiving them, but the boyfriend you're so in love with is also receiving them. Telling you in graphic detail the sexual things they want to do with your boyfriend and how desperately they want you to end your own life. Otherwise, they will do it for you. In 2021, that was Lauren Licari's reality.
My name's Lauren Licari.
Lauren Licari was born and raised in Beale City, where everyone knows everyone. It's a very small community in the state of Michigan that has its own hierarchy based on how long you've lived there, your contributions to the community, your wealth, as well as your positionality in the community. For example, Owen, Lauren's boyfriend, his parents were at sort of the top of the social hierarchy, as they were high school sweethearts, but they had been dating since the 7th grade. Coincidentally, that is the same grade that Lauren and Owen started to date. His father, Dave, led the town to a football championship, his mother, Jill, was a cheerleader, and they have been together ever since. The McKinneys were quite established in Beale. Khloe Wilson's family was also quite high up in the town's social hierarchy, in part because of their annual Halloween party that everyone wanted to attend, but also because Khloe's father is a cop. However, Lauren's dad, Sean, was kind of near the bottom of the social hierarchy as he wasn't very popular in high school. He didn't have a lot of social capital. He wasn't a part of the in crowd. Kendra, his wife, however, was an outsider, so she was close to the bottom of the hierarchy for that reason alone. Public perception in Beale City is everything. And more than anything, you need to look like a good person, even if you aren't. Performativeness is praised and upheld. Sophie Weber, a classmate of Lauren, Owen, Macy, and Khloe, said that no one has anything better to do in town than to talk about each other, kids and parents alike. It's kind of a toxic trait that gets passed down from one generation to the next.
No one really has anything better to do than talk about other people, like even the parents.
There is only one school in the town that goes from preschool to the 12th grade. This makes it quite easy to be all up in everybody's business. Word gets around pretty quickly. Because of the intense hierarchy, locals admit that Beale City can be a tough place for transplants, as they will almost always be seen as outsiders even if they've been there for the majority of their life. Kendra went above and beyond to not only try to fit in for herself, but also for her daughter to fit in and to get that social capital that she so desperately craved. Lauren's friends even knew Kendra as the cool mom. Kendra would approach students to gossip, and she would often be filmed by kids doing goofy stuff when they're away at weekend tournaments. Sports is kind of like the hub of the town. It's very much central to everything else that goes on. So like if your kid is popular, it's likely because they're in most sports, they're quite good at sports. Kendra and Lauren were at the center of each other's world, which makes sense as that was their only child and she's a girl. Kendra would actually talk about Lauren so much to the point of annoying all the other parents who were forced to listen to it. Lauren and Owen, like I mentioned before, they began dating when they were in the 7th grade. Lauren was only 12 years old. They were always talking, at first just friendly, and then it turned into a little bit of a crush, and eventually Owen worked up the nerve to ask her out. They had a lot in common, but particularly, like I said, based around sports, based on how athletic they were. A lot of their lives revolved around sports, and they were both quite good at what they did. From the very beginning, Kendra took every chance to insert herself unnecessarily into their relationship. She would even tell them what to do when they hung out. She, at times, would even take Lauren's phone to read the text thread between her and Owen, and then once actually responded to Owen, acting as if she was Lauren, saying, "I love you." Very weird thing for a parent to do, very off base. Kendra would also insist that she and Lauren attend as many of Owen's sporting events as they possibly could, whether it be in town, nearby, or hours away. She insisted on taking her, making that trip. Owen's mom, Jill, says that Kendra would talk about the kids like they would be together forever, which is kind of weird, kind of freaky, kind of alarming considering they're only in the 7th grade, they were 12 years old at the time they started dating, and this is both of their first relationships. Kendra's over-involvement continued when she signed up to coach Owen's track team. Owen said that Kendra kind of felt like a second mom to him, but I'm not sure if that's the way she thought about things. Owen's family saw Kendra as harmless as most of Beale did at this point. They recognized her deep desire to belong, but they did feel like she could be a little bit overwhelming at times, so they would sometimes, very rarely, decline her request to hang out. Despite all of this, Kendra and Jill did become very close. They became really good friends, and their families got along really well. Kendra says that Owen and Lauren were like a high school couple in a movie. The way Lauren's parents, Kendra and Sean, speak about this relationship could not be any more of polar opposites. Sean questions if Lauren was maybe too young for a relationship and is quite protective of her.
And I'm like, you're talking to a boy? Aren't you a little young for that?
Meanwhile, Kendra just gushes about what the two had in common and how they seemed meant to be together forever.
They liked a lot of the same stuff, you know? They went trick-or-treating together.
Kendra says that they were referred to as the golden couple, to which Jill says created jealousy in their class by people who either wanted to be in a relationship or they themselves wanted to be Owen or Lauryn. So when the hateful anonymous messages began, they were shocked, but at the same time, they understood that many people may be jealous of their children, their relationship, and their general status within the community. It's very interesting to me that almost all of the parents who participated in this documentary or in interviews, such as the Cut article about this particular case, they all seem to believe that people have a valid reason to be jealous of their children. And some people even take pride in the fact that others may be jealous of their children, which is very high school if you ask me. But like I mentioned before, that seems to be the general way that the town operated. There is definitely conflicting information on exactly how or when the messages began, but according to a Cut article that was published in January of 2025, in 2019, a few weeks after Owen and Lauryn began dating, the hateful anonymous text messages began. The messages seemed to throw in Lauryn's face that she was not invited to the annual Halloween party that was thrown by Khloe Wilson's family, specifically her mother, Tammy. This was a must-attend event. If you were anybody in Beale, you wanted to be there. It was elaborate, it was huge. Both parents and children would be in attendance. So it was typically a party for everybody to come to. But of course, you had to be invited. So Owen immediately showed these messages to his parents, but they brushed it off as someone who was trying to interfere in he and Lauryn's relationship. Tammy Wilson, however, caught wind of the text messages and personally called Kendra to reassure her that her, Lauryn, and Sean were more than welcome to attend the party. But according to the Netflix documentary, in October of 2020, Owen and Lauryn had been dating for a year. Owen and Lauryn both seem to agree that Lauryn was not invited to the Halloween party. Owen makes it seem like Lauryn and Khloe didn't necessarily get along, but he was going to bring Lauryn to the party with him regardless. He was not about to go without his girlfriend.
She was not invited, but I basically invited her, if I'm going, you're gonna come with me.
2 weeks before the Halloween party, the first text from an unknown number popped up in a group chat. It read, "Hi Lauryn, Owen is breaking up with you. He no longer likes you. He hasn't liked you for a while. It's obvious he wants me. Not sure what he told you, but he is coming to the Halloween party and we are both down to f***." Lauryn and Owen were both extremely confused. They had no idea who could be sending this. Owen questioned Khloe, and when she denied it, he just kind of assumed that the messages would eventually stop. Now, I personally, after watching the documentary a couple times, reading through the Cut article a couple of times, I'm more inclined to believe the Cut's version of events. And as we continue, I'm sure you'll understand why. I believe that in 2019, Lauryn was invited to the party, but then in 2020, as Lauryn and Owen's relationship progressed, Lauryn was not invited to the party. But that's neither here nor there. After the 2019 Halloween party, the messages stopped for a year, but when Lauryn and Owen were in the 8th grade, the messages began again. The Catfish came back with a vengeance, more aggressive than ever, seemingly with the goal of breaking up Lauryn and Owen. According to the Cut, the messages that were sent when the Catfish kind of came back state, "It's obvious he wants me. His attention is constantly on me. Not sure what he told you, but he wants nothing to do with you. He thinks you are annoying, an ugly ass and wishes you would leave him the alone. Why do you think he is on his phone all of the time texting me? You didn't even get invited to sleep with him. I'm sharing a bed with him, not you." These text messages were absolutely disgusting, and they continued randomly throughout the year with increasing vulgarity and frequency. Jill, Owen's mom, was the first one to bring concerns to the school about the messages, and they simply just told her to block the number, which is not helpful whatsoever, and I will honestly say I don't think the school or most of the adults in this situation were helpful at any point. Lauryn says that the person behind the messages knew what she was doing in class.
They knew what I was doing in class, I feel like.
And this can be proven by a message that was sent to Lauryn that said, "Trash, don't wear leggings. Ain't no one want to see your anorexic flat ass." These messages, understandably so, created serious insecurities within Lauryn, as the messages somehow seemed to target things that she was already insecure about. So it's definitely somebody who knew her and knew her well. For the most part, Lauryn ignored these messages, but sometimes she would fight back, and other times she would message Owen and ask him if he was in fact hanging out with other girls, if he wanted to break up. Owen would call and text her to give her some reassurance, but eventually these messages began to tear them apart. Over time, Lauryn's frustration grew with the entire situation, but one thing she always had was her parents there trying to support her and comfort her, especially her mom. Her mom would tell her to ignore the messages and reassure her that she is beautiful. Kendra told Lauryn to keep being herself, to not believe that what they wrote, because in her opinion, no one would do anything harmful.
I told her just to keep being her and just not even worry about anything, right? I didn't believe anybody would do anything harmful.
Kendra, however, continued to be overly involved in Lauryn and Owen's relationship. For example, at a volleyball game in August of sophomore year, Owen and Lauryn actually sat apart. Kendra was of course there, and she began to incessantly text Lauryn and berate her almost about the fact that they were not sitting together. The text messages that Kendra sent to Lauryn read, "Sit next to him. Answer me. Come here now. I'm pissed. Move your ass. Now. Now. I am fuming, pissed off. This is ridiculous. Answer me and move your ass." An insane way for a mother to speak to their middle school aged child, especially about a middle school relationship. Girl, mind your own business. No one at school really knew what was going on in terms of these messages until one day Owen asked Sophie, Macy, and Khloe if they were behind it or if they knew what was going on. Sophie says that not long after, Owen told them what was going on and began to talk about the details of the messages. The messages began to reflect conversations that they were having in class, which was absolutely alarming, and to them it seemed to confirm that the catfish had to be someone in their midst. The fact that it could be a very young child behind this was alarming for a number of reasons, but mainly because things just continued to escalate. They attacked Lauryn for doing very basic things that proved that they had some sort of insider knowledge as to what was going on at school. Before a Friday night football game, they called Lauryn out for showing up to class wearing Owen's jersey by saying, "What the f***? You need to take that off, you are embarrassing him." Messages then began to get really vulgar, and I mean vulgar even for me as a 25-year-old woman who enjoys a little vulgarness from time to time. This is too much. Especially because we're talking about children. These are children, these are babies. One read, "Owen and I down to suck finger." Another one read, "His dick and fingers, my pussy and mouth." The fuck? More messages were sent saying that Owen doesn't want Lauryn, saying things like "we will win." Owen wants BJs and making out. He doesn't want your sorry ass. Another read, "My tits in his face, make him horny, make it cream."
The woman was too stunned to speak.
Reading these messages makes me want to throw up in my mouth, so I can only imagine how Lauryn felt receiving them and not knowing who they were coming from. The messages started coming in about 30 to 50 times a day, and this was in a group chat with the unknown sender, Lauryn, and Owen. The messages were coming in all hours of the day and night. There didn't seem to be a time that was off limits. Owen's parents began taking his phone every night to monitor the messages, but also to make sure that he would not be tempted to stay up all night reading them, because I feel like it's kind of hard to ignore harassment that's being sent directly to you, especially when you're that young. Lauryn's parents, for whatever reason, did not also do this, which I think I would have. I don't think I can say the things that I would have done had I been the parents in any of these situations. While Owen and Lauryn's relationship deteriorated, the texts only got worse and worse. Some of the messages would actually build Lauryn and Owen up while also tearing them down, like an abusive relationship with an anonymous bully. In September, leading up to the homecoming dance, some of the messages that were sent said, "Could this be the end of the AKA golden couple with the relationship everyone idolizes?" Then later following up that message with, "You're the definition of a perfect couple and will be the perfect couple that gets married. Some of us don't want to hear it anymore," further fueling the notion that whoever was doing this was doing it out of jealousy. Owen and Lauryn did in fact go to the homecoming dance together, but in early November of 2021, Owen ended their relationship a little bit after the messages picked up. Owen says he thought that the only way to truly make the abuse stop was to give the catfish what they wanted and end their relationship, but he didn't really want to do it. It was heartbreaking for both of them, but especially for Lauryn, because Owen was her first love, and he just started to act like she didn't exist after the breakup.
He was my first love, and we just kind of stopped talking to each other.
Kendra says that she tried to reassure Lauryn by saying that even if Owen didn't like her, he would not say such awful things about her. She says tearfully that the messages created a strain in their relationship.
Even if he didn't like you, he's not gonna say these things. And unfortunately, it became a strain in their relationship.
When the relationship actually ended, they didn't tell anybody at school about the breakup, but somehow the Catfish seemed to know all about it and even tormented Lauryn by saying, "He already chose us, not you. He won't be with you this weekend, so don't even ask. Maybe you shouldn't have picked cross country over him. He isn't important to you. We were, though. You don't get with him in bed. You don't even sneak out with him. You dress awful. Ain't no guy want that." It seems like Kendra was just as upset about the relationship ending as Lauryn was. However, everyone in the situation's hopes that ending the relationship would cause the harassment to cease were unfortunately shattered, because it seemed like the ending of the relationship actually encouraged the Catfish to take things to the next level. As if they already weren't bad enough. Lauryn says that in the messages, it seemed like all the Catfish wanted was for the two of them to break up, but after they broke up, the messages only got worse. The Catfish began demanding that Lauryn kill herself, harm herself, and telling her that Owen's life would be better if she wasn't in it, warning her, "You better finish yourself before we do."
Get some help.
The fact that nobody was really taking this seriously at this point is completely frustrating, and there's no mindfulness and consideration for the children. That is the thing that aggravates me the most about this, and we'll talk about that more in the end. Nobody seemed to really care about the children. They said they did, but nobody's actions really aligned with that, except for maybe a handful of people. The Catfish continued to torment Lauryn about any and everything that went on in her day-to-day life. An example of this is when the girls' basketball season picked back up in November. 3 freshmen moved up to the varsity team, but Lauryn stayed on the junior varsity team. This is actually a very common practice. It's called getting called up. It's not anything out of the normal, especially when the varsity team may not have enough players or the junior varsity players are just that good. The Catfish texted Lauryn saying, "You suck at basketball. He ain't dating no suck ass anorexic not enough JV girl." Reading those messages, understandably so, left Lauryn in an awful mental state.
Made me definitely feel sad. I was in a bad mental state. This is getting bad.
I will say, I keep referring to the person sending the messages as the Catfish because I'm not sure what else to call them at this point. We don't know who it is. This is catfishing, but it's not. Like, it is and it's not, because obviously it's someone sending these hateful anonymous messages, but I feel like catfishing almost minimizes the harm that is being caused by this person. Throughout all of this, though, Kendra was still being slightly overbearing and inserting herself at every opportunity, but not usually in a productive way. For example, after Lauryn didn't get called up to play with the varsity team, a senior actually overheard Kendra talking to students, saying that the only reason those 3 girls were called up to play is because their parents were friends with the coach. Mind you, Kendra helped to coach the girls' basketball team, so.
What's not clicking? What's not clicking?
The situation is not funny, but hearing about her actions throughout confirms what I said before. Nobody was thinking about the children. I think I just laughed in that moment because Kendra's actions are ridiculous, particularly speaking about that one specific situation. Why are you talking smack about other girls getting called up and saying, "Oh, well, it's because their parents are friends with the coach"? You are literally the coach. So, like, what? What are you actually talking about? After the messages kind of showed no end, Lauryn's parents, Sean and Kendra, and Owen's parents, Dave and Jill, decided to sit down with school principal Dan Boyer and superintendent Bill Chillman. Dan Boyer, he does seem like he cares, but he just didn't know what to do. Bill Chillman, not necessarily a huge fan of him because
Be nice. I'm finding it.
Something about his personality is just off-putting to me. It gives attention grab. It doesn't give that he was genuinely concerned about the students and thinking about what it is that he should have been doing. It's more like, wow, this is crazy, and let me tell my story. I don't like it. I don't like that. Again, no one's thinking about the children. However, Kendra says that they were hoping by meeting with admin that there would be some sort of action because the messages were happening during school hours. And she then says that, unfortunately, in my opinion, I don't think the school handled things well.
So we really thought the school would, kind of, let's see what we can do. Unfortunately, in my opinion, I don't think the school handled things very well.
We listened and were judging hard.
Admin's only advice, really, was to block the numbers that sent the messages and to change the children's number. So doing absolutely nothing to get to the root of it, get to the bottom of it. They're like, just ignore it. Just just is not happening. And the parents were not having that, particularly Jill. I will say she went hard as hell to figure out who was behind all of this, even though it was primarily affecting Lauryn. Jill tried to pressure admin into enforcing a no phone policy during school hours, but those pleas unfortunately fell on deaf ears. Superintendent Bill said that that was not at all something they were willing to do. After these meetings, the text messages became the hot topic of conversation in the town. Word started to get out, with everyone seemingly trying to do everything to figure out who was behind it all, but those investigative sessions only led to everyone becoming a suspect, including Lauryn. So I think it was actually quite counterproductive. It just seemed to cause more problems. Sophie then says that they would try and drop little traps to potentially catch the catfish by talking loudly next to certain people. And then they were gonna see if those conversations or those topics got brought up in the text messages, but the only time those topics would get brought up in text messages is when they were around Lauryn. This definitely set off alarm bells for the kids, but for the adults in charge, they already had questions about Lauryn's involvement. Sophie thought that Lauryn was sending the messages to herself to get attention, but also to get closer to Owen.
So I thought that Lauryn could have been sending the text messages to herself to try to honestly get closer with Owen, and it kind of seemed like she wanted attention, and this would be a way that she could get it.
Eventually, Lauryn and Owen were both ruled out as suspects, but amongst students and parents, they were not convinced that Lauryn didn't have anything to do with it. I think it's very interesting that they immediately assumed that Lauryn's doing it for attention, and she was considered a suspect socially. Even to this day, some people still think she had something to do with it, but no one ever thought that Owen would be behind it. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but something about that feels inherently misogynistic to assume that a girl would go out of her way to do this for attention, but that a boy would not go out of his way to do it for attention.
Boys don't really have drama. We just play sports and have fun, that's all.
This statement blows me a little bit because some of the messiest people I have ever met have been men. And that it's more feasible for Lauryn to be sending herself hateful things than it is for somebody else to be sending her hateful things. I can't quite put my finger on why that feels wrong and icky and disgusting, but it does. And I also think that this plays into the social hierarchy of it all, because if Owen and his family were at the top, Lauryn and her family were at the bottom, then in everyone's minds, it's more justifiable why Lauryn would do this to herself to garner that sympathy, that attention, maybe try and climb that social status, whereas Owen and his family, they're already at the top, so they don't need that. So the school admin and Jill became very worried about Lauryn and Owen's mental health, worried that eventually they or the catfish would snap and cause harm to one another or themselves. On November 30th, 2021, Jill saw the news about a 15-year-old in nearby Detroit who brought a semi-automatic gun to school and murdered 4 fellow classmates. She found herself thinking of what would happen if or when Lauryn and Owen were pushed to their breaking point. When Jill told Kendra that she was going to meet with a sheriff's detective about the catfish, Kendra did not hesitate in saying, "I will meet you there." Why Kendra didn't do this ahead of time, considering her child was the main target of the catfish, is quite confusing, but we'll get into that. Sheriff Mike Main became involved in this situation about 15 months after the text messages began. He met with admin as well as the Licaris and the McKennies. He claimed that he also worried about the physical threats that were made and the ultimate safety of the children, even though by his actions, it doesn't look like he was. The main thing that this man would do would be go to the school routinely to speak with Lauryn and Owen.
Once or twice a week, Sheriff Main would come to the school and just ask questions like, when was your last message? What was it about?
He claims that he knew he was looking for a group of students who had a close bond and essentially wouldn't snitch on each other. So a lot of what he did was just speak to the students.
Be nice. I'm finding it.
And speak to the parents. And do that for months and months and months and months and months. From the outside looking in, the Licaris looked like a picture-perfect Beale City family. Kendra was most definitely the matriarch. She ran in that house. She seemed like she had it all together, like she knew what she was doing. She was also the breadwinner in her marriage, as she worked as a bank branch supervisor and then in human resources at Central Michigan University. Sean changed oil at a local auto body shop. Sean was also an extremely devoted husband and father. He took Lauryn hunting, he cheered her on at games, and helped coach some of her teams, but Kendra was arguably the heartbeat of the family. She kept the family's life moving, overseeing everything that went down, particularly Lauryn's life and the family finances. Okay, keep that in mind for later, because that will be important later. In spring of 2019, when Lauryn was in the 6th grade, Kendra got a job 40 minutes away at Ferris State University. The role was on the IT service desk as a cell phone specialist, and she told her family that it came with a huge salary bump. So they're like, oh my gosh, things are good, we're making it, okay? That's the mindset that this family now has. And a few months into that job, during the fall, Lauryn and Owen started to date. They actually were able to move into a new 4-bedroom rustic chic log cabin, a home that Sean referred to as his dream home. Things were really looking up for the Licaris. Life was lifing in the best possible way. However, locals began to speculate that something was off. They couldn't quite figure out what it was, but something was definitely amiss with the family, with the Licaris, okay? Sean would obviously talk to his coworkers about his life. That's what coworkers do. When he would talk to them about things that were going on in his life, they looked at him like he was crazy, because he would say stuff that we know catfish victims usually say. Like, their house payments were missed because someone in New Mexico had stolen their identity, or that his truck was repossessed because of a scammer rather than bills just simply weren't being paid. Kendra would also share these same kind of stories to anyone who would listen, when saying that a check had bounced for her portion of a spring break condo because her accounts had gotten hacked.
Be fucking for real.
Sure, Jan.
Now, her excuses sound far-fetched and unbelievable, but I think even more far-fetched and unbelievable when you consider that she works in IT. So, like, if anyone is going to be able to protect their accounts or figure out what's going on, it would be her. But I think the general point that I was trying to make throughout all of this is that people sensed things were off with the Licaris and Kendra.
After Lauryn and Owen broke up, Dave, Owen's father, actually sent Kendra a message just basically saying that the families can still hang out despite the ending of that relationship. But coincidentally, very conveniently, the escalation of the bullying meant that there was an urgent reason for Kendra to still be hanging out with the McKennies. Talking, spending time together, seeing each other all the time. At Owen's basketball games, Kendra would still sit beside Jill, and Kendra would encourage Lauryn to show Jill the most recent round of hateful messages. So they were still talking, they were still clicked up, if you will. So like every school, there was a social hierarchy at Beale, or cliques, if you will. According to Owen, you could typically fit into one of these 3 categories, especially if you were a girl, okay? So there were the popular kids, there were the cheerleaders, and then there was another group of quieter kids. He then specifies that his cousin Adrianna was a part of the quiet group of girls, and he suspected that group to be behind it because they seemed more techie, in his words. They were good at technology, so they might be the ones doing this. One of the girls who was a part of the popular kids group who Lauryn thought could have been behind all of this was Khloe Wilson. They played sports together, particularly basketball, so that's kind of how they knew each other. But Khloe was the complete opposite of Lauryn in every single which way. She was muscular with long dark hair. She seemed to have a natural confidence. People seemed to gravitate towards her, whereas Lauryn, she was more petite, she was blonde, and she was more of an introvert. And Khloe was also one of the freshmen who had got called up to play varsity basketball. Khloe was also somewhat of a romantic threat because Khloe and Owen were friends, and they had admitted to having crushes on each other on and off throughout the school year that all of this began.
If they were a little bit like more than friends, they kind of always liked each other.
Lauryn and Khloe were friendly, as were a group of popular girls, including Macy and Sophie, who we talked about a little bit earlier. But eventually these girls stopped speaking to Lauryn altogether because they didn't want to become a target of the bully. Kendra and Jill often talked about whether they believed Khloe was behind all of the messages or not. These beliefs seem to be somewhat solidified by a variety of things, but particularly anonymous complaints began to come in about Khloe to the state's tip line, OK to Say. One was about her yelling at a teammate during a sporting event, and another was about Owen helping her cheat during a computer class test. Kendra and Jill also thought this because Khloe and the texter often said, bruh.
Be fucking for real.
What an odd thing to say.
This is how you know it was older people thinking about this, because everybody says bruh. Like, it's not an indicator that that is Khloe, right? But they also thought that it could potentially be Khloe because her dad was a police sergeant. The Catfish had actually mentioned that they had cops to defend them. So as of right now, all signs are pointing towards Khloe. Sean, Lauryn's dad, said that there was potential for all of this to get swept up under the rug if Khloe was truly responsible, since her father is a police officer. So now we're getting into the police corruption of it all, y'all. Between the Licaris and the McKennies, Kendra definitely had closest proximity to Khloe because she helped to coach the girls' basketball team, which Khloe was on with Lauryn. So Jill asked her if she thought it was Khloe because she knew the girls best. Kendra started to question if someone was jealous or envious of Lauryn on the basketball team.
This is where I started to really kind of think, okay, is somebody on the high school team jealous or envious?
There we go again with that jealousy thing. Now, there was seemingly the first big breakthrough in all of this when the Catfish had mentioned how many points that they had scored the night before at the game. So admitting that they're on the team with Lauryn, they scored a specific amount of points. They scored 12 points. When Kendra and Lauryn looked at the score sheet, the only person who had that specific number of points was Khloe Wilson.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Okay, overall, I will say that Khloe is described to be a bit of an instigator. She had a crush on Owen, and Owen himself says that Khloe was definitely not a nice person. He clarifies that she was not a bully, but she most definitely was not a nice person.
Khloe wasn't the nicest person growing up, and she wasn't a bully, but she wasn't a nice person by any means.
Craig and Tammy Wilson, Khloe's parents, say that throughout the 7th and the 8th grade, many allegations of Khloe being a bully were brought to their attention, but it's clear that her parents do not agree with this narrative. They say, very delusionally I might add, that she's a leader, she's beautiful, she's athletic, she's popular, so kids were just jealous of her and she didn't do this. She was not a bully. People just couldn't handle her.
Everybody's so creative.
Well, now we know where Khloe gets her bullying tendencies from. Pot, meet kettle, like hello. But because of all of this, the sheriff began to look into Khloe. I will say, any conclusion or any lead that he had, it was not because of his own knowledge. It was not because of his own critical thinking. It's because someone else told him to look that way. Someone else told him to do that. This officer, in my opinion, my humble opinion, he was very useless throughout all of this. But Sheriff Maine began to look into Khloe as a possible suspect. When he learned that Sophie, Macy, and Khloe were good friends, he thought he had the case on lock. He's like, yup, it's them. This is the close group I've been looking for, and Khloe's the leader. It's over. It's done. Wrap it up. Boy, was he ever wrong, okay? He was wrong, which is not shocking. In late January of 2022, Craig Wilson, Khloe's dad, actually got a call from Sheriff Maine. He and Tammy confronted Khloe, but she was tearfully denying all of it, so they believed her. She then told her parents that Owen and Lauryn were already questioning her, and as a way to prove her innocence, she actually gave Owen her phone for a day to prove that it wasn't her that was sending the text messages. When Owen had her phone, the text messages were still coming in. Khloe was absolutely ready to prove that it was not her, so she gave her phone to her father, who gave it to his cop buddies to download its contents, do sort of a forensic search of it, and it came up clean. Despite Craig's involvement to clear his daughter's name, he was not officially on the case, but he clearly still had some pull, he had some involvement, so I can understand the hesitancy that Sean particularly had about Khloe's innocence. But it's really looking like it's not Khloe. Okay, and at this point, I just need everybody to also think, if Khloe's saying she's not doing it, why would she go out of her way to make it look like she's guilty in the text messages? If the person is trying to remain anonymous, why would they out themselves? Like, don't get me wrong, do I think that Khloe may have been a bully? Maybe. She might have, but it doesn't look like she did this. But again, evidence just kept coming in that seemed to point at Khloe conveniently. Despite the forensic download clearing Khloe's name, messages started to come in from the Catfish, which made it look like Khloe was still behind everything, and these messages read, "Talked to police yesterday, they kept my phone, searched it, copied it, found nothing bad."
Okay.
Khloe says that she knew she was under suspicion. Before the accusations, she was popular, a lot of people liked her. However, this confident front only remained in public. As soon as she was home, she would break down, she would cry, because she couldn't understand, her words, not mine, she couldn't understand why people would think she did such a horrible, awful thing, as if it didn't align with a previous pattern of behavior that had nothing to do with Lauryn. But eventually, Owen and everyone else started to really come to their senses and question if it really was Khloe, why would she be making it so obvious that she was the one behind it? The Catfish then began to send pictures of Owen and Khloe together alongside messages like "girls be spending night real cream." That doesn't even make sense. But at this point, it became clear to everyone but Kendra that Khloe was being set up. She was still convinced that Khloe was behind all of it, and even after the forensic search of the phone, she started to find evidence that pointed towards the same conclusion that, she believed that Khloe was behind it. Kendra says that Lauren's Snapchat was hacked, and when Kendra contacted Snapchat, they said that the login came from Broomfield Township where the Wilsons lived. One weekend, the text came from a 906 area code, the same area code where Khloe was snowboarding with her family. Why anybody would believe this doesn't make sense to me because, first of all, the area codes, you could get a fake number with an area code from anywhere. That's number one. But number two, I highly doubt that if you just contact Snapchat requesting that they give you information, I don't think they're obliged to just turn it over that easily. I would assume that they would require a warrant or some sort of legal pressure. They're not just going to give it to you. Also, Kendra never showed any proof of this. This is just word of mouth. However, Kendra's conviction that Khloe was behind it all translated to Jill having that same confidence as they were friends and they were sort of going through this together. Their kids were going through the same thing. Jill would herself get overly involved and text Khloe pretending to be Owen saying, "If this is you, be honest."
Owen later texted Khloe or called her the next day and said, "That was my mom, I'm sorry about that." Jill was sending texts pretending to be Owen.
Now this would create tension between Khloe and Owen, but also create tension between Owen and Jill. Craig and Tammy had a very strong hunch for who was behind all of this, and they actually made their suspicions clear to Sheriff Maine. In early February, Craig texted Sheriff Maine and told him, "Honestly, Mike, I don't know if you know Kendra or not, but you really need to be cautious. There's a pretty good part of me that thinks she may very well be doing this."
Hey, yo!
I think that the concept of a mother doing this to her child was too hard for people to believe. They refused to believe it. Mr. Maine did not take this seriously at all, didn't even look into it slightly, and instead, he began to drag in 10 different high school suspects for questioning one by one on a regular routine basis, with the hopes that someone, I guess, would eventually crack. I don't really know what he was going for here. That man was very useless. I don't think he did a good job at all. But like I said so many times, like Kendra and Jill just aren't able to get in their heads at this point. The phone dump proved that Khloe has nothing to do with this. She may have been a bully, she may not have been nice, but she didn't do this. So about 17 months after the messages began, Sheriff Maine began to go down the list, and I guess the next person under Khloe was Sophie. They began to look at Sophie as a suspect. Sophie and Owen have been close friends basically since birth because their parents are friends. Sophie's mom, Corinne Weber, was actually one of Jill's best friends. So as such, being one of her best friends, being concerned about Owen and wondering if her child was really a part of all of this, she did everything to figure out if Sophie was behind it. Corinne went through Sophie's photos and found no evidence that she was a part of any of it. So after being interviewed by Sheriff Maine, he also ruled out Sophie as a suspect. With no suspects, with the messages getting more and more aggressive, and nowhere else to turn, Sheriff Maine eventually went back through the messages and he started to fixate on a picture from the Catfish that had a sweatshirt and a phone case. It was sent to that group chat with Lauryn and Owen, alongside a message saying, "Lo, we digging his new black phone case for real," just tormenting the girl.
Now, this message in particular was kind of tormenting Lauryn because it showed that Owen had replaced the phone case that Lauryn had bought for him and he had been using since they were dating. Now, keep in mind, these messages are coming in at minimum 50 times a day, just full of torment, harassment, and abuse. I honestly do not even know how Lauryn was able to stay strong through it all, but I'm glad she did.
To be honest, there's not that there's ever a justified reason for doing any of this, but at this point it seems like cruel and unusual punishment to target Lauryn for what reason? Because why does she care what this boy got for Christmas? That's none of her concern. All of the messages, to be fair, freaked out Owen and his family, but this one in particular really freaked them out because this picture would have had to have been taken at the family's Christmas party where only family was present. The only family member who was at Christmas, who was also in Owen's class, is cousin Adrianna, who Owen mentioned earlier on as being an outsider. Apparently, allegedly, there was previous tension between Adrianna and Khloe's crew. Adrianna had alleged that Khloe, Sophie, and Macy had bullied her, that they threw carrots at her, just typical bully things, and they deny all of it. However, Sophie, Macy, Khloe claimed that nobody else would dislike them that much to frame all of this on them except for Adrianna. We then hear from Adrianna herself, and she tells us that when she played sports with Sophie, Khloe, and Macy, she was outside of their group, and if you were an outsider, they were not nice to you.
I was on the volleyball team with Chloe, Macy, and Sophie. They had like their group, and if you weren't part of that group, you were considered what I call the outsiders. And if you were an outsider, they weren't nice to you.
She says that she had very few good days when being bullied by these girls. Adrianna never said anything. She tried to just take it on the chin because she knew that speaking up would backfire. It would ultimately work against her. But eventually her mom noticed, spoke up, and made a Facebook post just speaking about what her kid was going through. Things did not get any better from that point on. It actually started to get a little bit worse because now all of the parents were looking at Adrianna and her family sideways as if they weren't already, because again, they're very low in that social hierarchy. Since Khloe's family felt like Khloe was being personally attacked, they decided to attack back, and they made it clear that they believed that Adrianna was behind all of this. They believed that Adrianna was the catfish.
After initially accusing Kendra, they then switched their tune a little bit and said, okay, well, if you're not going to look into Kendra, then the only other person who it would be is Adrianna, because she's jealous of Khloe. She wants to be Khloe. They've had beef previously. That was kind of their mindset.
Adrianna spoke to the cops and denied all involvement. She says that she did not take that picture of Owen at the Christmas party. She has no idea how anybody got that. And she then gets emotional when speaking about how people thought she could be responsible simply because she was a quiet kid who kept to herself. And that is the same reason they initially thought that Lauryn was behind it.
I didn't know how people thought I could do that. But it was also very hurtful. Because like I was this quiet kid at school.
So again, I feel like this social hierarchy thing is just interwoven throughout this entire case, and I don't think it was talked enough about in the documentary. She says that everyone assumed her guilt rather than trying to prove her innocence. Adrianna felt like Officer Maine had his mind made up when he spoke to her. She says that she's traumatized because of this experience, and she actually fears the police because of it.
Now every time I pass a cop on the road, like I am scared. Like I'm scared of cops now.
In the documentary, Sheriff Maine speaks very little, if at all, about his interviews with Adrianna, and we also do not see any of the footage from their interviews. In my opinion, this would back up Adrianna's claim that she was mistreated throughout this process, that they thought less of her, that they didn't treat her with any sort of innocence, they didn't actually give her the opportunity to explain herself, they were just talking to her as if she was guilty, and they didn't want to show that footage. They didn't want to release that footage because it would make them look bad in a situation that I already think made them look bad. Jill says that she knew Adrianna had absolutely nothing to do with it, but she seemed like the only adult who really thought so. After speaking to Sheriff Maine, Adrianna herself began to receive text messages from the catfish. The general theme of these messages was that Adrianna needs to help get Lo up out of here. Okay, they made it clear they wanted her to die. And to tell Owen's parents that Lo is a who ruined Owen's life and Adrianna hates her too. By the time we have now reached spring of 2022, everyone has reached their breaking point. Everyone is on edge, they're anxious, they're worried, they're concerned, and they're frustrated because the people who are supposed to be in charge, the people who are supposed to be helping, aren't doing shit except for traumatizing more children. Again, nobody's thinking about the children. The awful messages just continued, saying things like, I own Owen's dick. Cry more, you jealous bitch. She, referring to Lauryn, don't deserve the air she breathes. She is a pointless human. No one ever want your anorexic flat ass and tits. No dude ever touching that nasty slut.
Cut the cameras.
The Antcliffe twins would see Lauryn crying on the bus on the way to their sporting events. It was very negatively affecting her, and it was also very negatively affecting Owen. However, Kendra continued to have inappropriate relationship with minors by sending the Antcliffe twins screenshots of the catfish's text messages to Lauryn, specifically the ones that were encouraging Lauryn to hurt or kill herself. Why, as a parent, you would show those messages to another child and traumatize them in the process? I don't understand. It seems like everybody except for Kendra has healthy relationships with the children involved. But nobody seems to clock her on her weirdness. Nobody seems to tell her that's inappropriate, you need to stop it. Natalie Antcliffe, the mother of the Antcliffe twins, says that every time Kendra called, she worried that it would be a call that Lauryn harmed herself. Natalie seemed to question just how much a little girl can take, which honestly an extremely valid question. Because you can just take a look at the Amanda Todd case, in where being cyberbullied, cyberstalked, threatened, and blackmailed did actually lead her to pass away due to suicide, and yet Kendra seemed confident that Lauryn would not hurt herself, but nobody else seemed to have that same confidence, not even her own husband. Now, one thing that I do want to bring up is that in January of 2022, when the parents had initially started meeting with Sheriff Maine, Owen's parents were in awe by how little Sean actually knew about the catfishing situation. Meanwhile, Kendra was out here talking about the situation with anyone who would listen, anyone who would give her the time of day. A prime example of this was in late 2022, Kendra went to the high school basketball coaches saying that the bullying was throwing Lauryn off of her game. She wasn't playing as well, she wasn't performing as well because of this. They would suggest solutions to Kendra, but she would never listen, only to bring the same issues up the next day. Kendra would also reach out to some of Lauryn's friends, minors, asking them to leave class to comfort Lauryn when she was crying in the bathroom. Things started to get even more weird when students would see Kendra parked in the school parking lot during the school day. She would talk to anyone who would listen to her about very specific, very awful things that the catfish was saying to Lauryn. She would say it in the parking lot and she would say it in the school halls during the school day, such as speaking to Owen's younger sister Macy, telling her that the catfish had insulted Lauryn's shirt, or speaking to Natalie Antcliffe in the parking lot and talking about how it had taken Lauryn hours to get dressed, and she was nervous about how she would perform at sporting events because the catfish would be making fun of her either way. I just feel like if my child was going through something this traumatic, I'm not airing out your business. I'm not doing that. This person is already humiliating you. Why would I also now humiliate you? People also started to question why Kendra always seemed to be around during the school day, which coincides with the work day. Girl, don't you have a job? Kendra would brush off any questions, any comments, or any concerns about why she wasn't at work by saying that she worked from home. And she would even wear Ferris State merch to back up that fact, to make it seem like what she was saying was more valid. Girl, anybody could wear that. But at this point, Khloe's parents were not the only ones actively voicing their concerns and suspicions about Kendra. Whispers began to circulate around town, questioning Kendra's innate desire and almost demand for attention. After seeing the messages and kind of the contents and what was said and how it was said, another parent straight up said this was absolutely definitely an adult behind it, and they wouldn't put it past Kendra. School admin themselves noticed that at first the catfish was speaking in full sentences with proper spelling and proper punctuation. However, as time went on, the messages kind of devolved. They used more slang. They didn't use any punctuation at all. They misspelled words that were quite easy to spell properly, almost as if it was an adult trying to imitate a child. Beale's secretary, Diane Fussman, told Principal Boyer that she even suspected that Kendra was behind it, but Boyer said, "No way, Jose. No way." Fussman said that she always thought that Kendra was a bit obsessive with her child, and her gut told her that it wasn't one of their students behind the tomfoolery. Despite everybody saying, like, maybe Kendra's behind it, like, trying to tell Mr. Maine that, nothing was done. Nothing was done. He was still convinced it was one of the children. He just couldn't figure out which one. And while I get that you wouldn't want to think that a mother would do this, that's not the first thing going through your mind. You still need to look into it as a possibility. In the Licari home, Sean says that no one was getting along. The messages brought a lot of tension to the household, but specifically to their marriage. Sean says that he was getting increasingly upset with Kendra because she said she would handle things and she's not handling things. But she insisted to him that she is and can handle things. And Kendra's version of events about this in particular says that she just wasn't spending enough time at home. She says that Lauryn was a priority, but Sean was not.
Lauryn was a priority and I spent tons of time with her, but unfortunately, Sean wasn't made a priority.
This part in particular bothered me because she's making it seem as if Sean's issue was that Kendra wasn't paying attention to him, and Sean's issue was that this has been going on for so long, it hasn't been resolved, and Kendra is trying to make it seem like, oh, I prioritized our daughter over our marriage, and that's not at all what Sean's issue is.
And throughout all of this, I think in about the 2 years that this was going on, they moved 4 different times. Kendra then says that this situation led to worse financial struggles than they were already in. Now, what exactly she means by that, I am not sure, because Lauryn doesn't contribute financially to the household. Now, Sheriff Maine made it seem like he had done everything he could do and his resources were tapped out. I personally, making my stance clear, in my opinion, I don't think he did a good investigation at all. A lot of what he did was just stir up more problems, cause more distrust, and allow his thinking to be swayed by the opinion of the parents, rather than looking at what was going on and thinking for himself. He was just as caught up as everybody else in the social hierarchy of it all, and he did Lauryn and Owen a disservice.
And I say that maybe he got caught up in the social hierarchy of it all because when Kendra was first brought to him as a suspect, he talked immediately to Jill about it. Jill said, no, there's no way. So then he didn't search further into that lead. Jill and Dave and the McKennies were kind of at the top. And like I mentioned at the beginning, Khloe and her family were right up there with them. Not quite as high, but up there with them. So he decided to take Jill's word as gospel instead of looking into things for himself. And he ultimately just targeted whoever the parents decided to point a finger at in that moment.
In April of 2022, Officer Maine reached out to the FBI for help, and Officer Brad Peter got involved. Officer Peter says he knew he'd have to move quickly to get answers because everyone was fed up, but also because burner apps only held onto subscriber records for about 2 weeks. He was absolutely shocked at the messages, but also the lack of action on Mr. Maine's part. Peter's main concern was how much longer Owen and Lauryn were going to be able to withstand the abuse before one of them did something fatal. Finally, someone worried about the children. Took us long enough. Officer Peter truly hit the ground running. He did a full extraction of Owen's phone for any clues or hints and didn't find anything, something I can't believe Mr. Maine didn't do. In the documentary, they made it seem like Officer Maine was the one who did the forensic download of Khloe's phone, but the article makes it clear that that only happened because of Khloe's dad. But the fact that he didn't think about that and he wasn't like, hey, actually that's a good idea, let me do that for Owen and Lauryn.
Bombastic side-eye. Criminal offensive side-eye.
After Officer Peter was brought onto the case, Jill would send him any new numbers that they texted the Catfish from. He and Jill communicated quite often and quite freely. However, he found communication with Kendra to be somewhat difficult because she would often ignore him. Yeah, your daughter is being harassed, your daughter is being abused, and you're like, I don't have time to talk to you. But you have time to go to the school and talk to the kids and message the kids and be inappropriate with the kids. All right. While he was determined to get to the bottom of things, it became clear that there was nothing the Catfish was unwilling to do. And this would eventually lead to their demise. Owen began dating a girl seriously from another town, and he says that he began to feel happy again.
It was a serious thing. I slowly started to feel happy again, like maybe everything will be okay.
However, shortly after they started dating, the girl and her mother began to get messages from the Catfish telling them to back off of Owen because he belonged to the Catfish. This relationship had barely started, and the Catfish found them already. Owen says that the Catfish really went out of their way to do this. He felt trapped, he had no freedom, and he didn't want to subject anyone else to any of this. It was in this moment he realized that every movement of his was being watched.
It would eat me alive. Like each and every day I'd feel like I lose trust in everyone.
Owen and the girl broke up because of it. Bullying was at an all-time high for Lauryn as well. And there was a clear shift in the way that the Catfish was doing business, okay? In the way that they were being awful. For example, in November of 2021, the Catfish told Lauryn, Owen said that his life would be better if she were dead. However, half an hour later, they took it back saying, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Dead was too far.
As if everything else they said wasn't already taking it too far.
What? They took it back. It shows that there was some remorse, some level of feeling bad about things. However, in May of 2022, there were no apologies. The messages were full force and horrific. Particularly the one that said, kill yourself now. Over time, though, Jill also started to become suspicious of Kendra and look at Kendra a little bit sideways. Months after their children had broken up, Kendra continued to inquire about Owen's love life, asking if he was dating Khloe, and if Jill thought that Lauryn and Owen would eventually get back together. Jill said, what the f***? Stop asking me about my child's love life. What are you doing? She set very clear boundaries that they would only speak about the Catfish and nothing else. In early May of 2022, after basketball season was over, the principal saw Kendra's car parked near the Catholic church very close to the school. Now, the timing of this is weird because basketball season is over, so she has no business being there. Inside the car, Kendra was looking down at her lap. When she looked up, she saw Dave, she waved and she smiled. Now, later that day, Jill and Kendra were speaking on the phone as they usually did, just talking about the Catfish. exchanging the messages, trying to piece things together. Unprompted, Kendra said that Dave probably thought it was funny seeing me in the parking lot. And then, this is what I hate. I hate when people go out of their way to lie, and I didn't ask you. Why are you volunteering a lie to me about a situation I didn't ask you about? Kendra claims that she drove into town to get gas and coffee and spilled the coffee all over herself, so she pulled in the church parking lot to wipe it off. Jill could sense that something was off. Couldn't exactly figure out what or why, but she was not buying this story that Miss Mamas was trying to sell. Officer Peter was working hard to figure out what was happening. And when he was hard at work, unlike some people, Officer Maine, he found that at least one of the messages came from Pinger, which is an app used to disguise your real phone number. I'm surprised I've never heard of Pinger because, you know, we talk about Catfish all the time over here. He submitted a series of warrants to Pinger and then eventually to Verizon. On Tuesday, May 23rd, 2022, the search warrants came back with a phone number that was behind all of the text messages that had been sent. After cross-referencing, double-checking, triple-checking, he discovered that the phone number belonged to Kendra, Lauren's mom. Kendra was doing this, had been doing it the entire time.
And the phone number was Lauren's mom, Kendra.
When Jill was told that Kendra was behind it, she was adamant that it was not her. There was no way, no possibility. She's Lauren's mom, for Pete's sake. This was the general attitude that most people had when the news initially hit, until they thought about things critically with some hindsight. They realized that Kendra overly involved herself at every possible point, despite initially coming off as a caring, concerned, and involved parent. They realized that she was having inappropriate relationships with a lot of the children under the guise of being concerned for Lauryn. Kendra was clearly pretending to be someone she was not. So after people started to really think critically about Kendra and this whole situation, a lot of things come to light, okay? Remember I said earlier that damn near everything that the Licari family did was orchestrated, controlled, or funded by Kendra, okay? We find out that Kendra had been hiding a lot of financial problems. She hid a lot of things, and she lied a lot. Like, if I were anybody in this situation, I would just assume that anything Kendra ever said was a lie, to be honest with you. Because how can you trust a lying liar who lies? You can't. Her job change in 2019 was not a job change at all. She was actually fired from Central Michigan University for her performance. Her new job at Ferris State didn't come with a wage bump. While she was working this job, bill collectors were actively filing suits in court for unpaid utility and insurance bills. In fall of 2019, when the text started, the Licari's home was foreclosed on, but Kendra told everybody that they sold it. The log cabin that was Sean's dream home that they moved into after entering a land contract after the text began and after Lauryn and Owen began dating. Okay, so a land contract is basically just a way to buy a house where you pay installments directly to the owner if you have bad credit or if you have like evictions or foreclosures on your credit report. Something important to note here, at least something I think that's important to note here, after Lauryn and Owen began dating, Kendra felt the urge to upgrade their lifestyle and make it seem like they were doing good in life. And I don't think this is because she really wanted her husband to feel good or her daughter to feel good. I think she wanted to impress Owen and she wanted to impress Owen's family. By spring of 2021, in Lauryn's 8th grade year, Kendra's managers at Ferris State put her on a performance improvement plan, or a PIP. And they did this because she was spending excessive amounts of time on non-working texts and calls, okay? So at work, she's harassing her child and her child's boyfriend. And so she is now on an improvement plan at work because she's busy harassing people. What the hell is wrong with you? When her bosses talked to her about why she spent so much time on these texts and calls, she said that it was because she was overwhelmed and stressed out from COVID, sports, and all of her responsibilities. In August of Lauryn's freshman year, Kendra was not doing well with her performance plan, so she quit her job. Kendra, however, continued to act like she was working. She maintained that she was working from home. She would take fake work calls whenever Sean was around to keep up with the lie. This woman was deceitful about every damn thing. And whenever Sean would ask Kendra about their finances, she would change the subject. I think it's important that we just talk about the depths of her deception and the lengths that she was willing to go to deceive everybody for the sake of maintaining this image and having this fantasy of this life that didn't really exist for her. So during Lauren's freshman fall year, and after continued excuses from Kendra, the cabin owners, Sean's dream home, started the eviction process. In April of 2022, just a little bit before the FBI got involved, the court received a request from the Licaris to delay eviction. The letter said that we do not have any other place to go and we are completely terrified of being homeless with our daughter, claiming that they were dealing with unemployment.
Halfway.
Sean was working. Sean thought Kendra was working. So what unemployment were they dealing with? I don't know. Also, I'm curious as to how she was able to do this without him. Was she forging signatures? Did he know about this and actively participated? Are these things not going to be public record? Are people not going to see that you're worried about being homeless and that you don't have a job?
I want to be clear, in no way, shape, or form am I shaming her or anybody else who is struggling financially or dealing with potential homelessness. I understand that that would be a very difficult position to be in, and I definitely feel for people who are in that position. However, I do not feel for Kendra because she is consistently lying, and she ended up quitting or losing her job so that she could harass her daughter and encourage her daughter to no longer be on this earth and talk very sexually about things she wanted to do with a little boy. I don't have sympathy for Kendra at all.
Despite all of Kendra's efforts, they were getting evicted. But Kendra did what liars do. She lied. She says that they were only evicted because the house's foundation had cracked and they had to move out while the house was lifted for repairs. What the fuck are you talking about? Girl, Kendra made false insurance claims, even claiming that their house was struck by lightning to get money to cover the fact that she was not working.
At one time, she had told us that her house got struck by lightning. She made some insurance claims, and I think it's possible that she could have just kept the money.
So not only are you harassing your child, are you sexually obsessed with a little boy, you're committing insurance fraud?
We listen and we're judging hard. We listen and we judge hard.
So one time when they were getting evicted, Sean only found out because there was a notice placed on the door, and Kendra then admitted that she was not paying the bills. They were able to find a storage unit to keep their things in. It was not very expensive. Sean believed that it was affordable. That was a way to keep their things while they figured out their living situation. Only to find out that Kendra did not pay for the storage unit and they lost all of their things. Everything Sean had worked his whole life for was gone.
Important stuff that we got souvenirs from was all in there. Just all the stuff that I worked for all my life is now gone.
Now,
do you want to get beat the fuck up, bitch?
And I don't mean to berate Sean or criticize him in any way. I just question why you would trust her to do anything after you are getting evicted because she lied to you about paying bills. Personally, if you lied to me about paying bills, I'm not about to trust you to pay any other bills. Or if I do trust you, I'm making sure you're paying those bills. I'm not just trusting what you have to say, but I also recognize that at this point, Kendra was a master manipulator. And so he might not have even been thinking in that way. Kendra's cousin Melissa says that she believes everything Kendra told Sean for the 10 years of their relationship was a lie. She also says that Kendra has always liked attention and will do almost anything to get it. However, I don't think this is the type of attention she wanted. I don't think she thought things were going to end up this way. 2 months after this huge break in the case, Sheriff Maine pulled into the driveway of Sean's mother's home where Kendra, her daughter, and her husband were staying because they had gotten evicted from their past 4 homes. They were pulling up with the sole purpose of taking all her electronics. Girl, hand them over. You're done. It's over. We know it's you. So as they're heading to execute the warrant, they claimed that they had very little evidence to prove that it was Kendra, so they needed to be careful and they needed a recorded confession to be able to get a conviction. I can tell you exactly how the execution of the warrant went down because the body cam footage was made available in the documentary, and I will include as much of it as I can. So Kendra does not seem shocked or confused initially to hear that they are there for her devices. They immediately take her laptop and the phone that she had on her person. Officer Maine says that all of the evidence shows Kendra was behind the messages. She does a very half-hearted job at denying it, but she quickly drops the facade when asked if she did this because of an infatuation with Owen.
The messages coming and originating from you?
No.
Does it have to do with Owen? Is there an infatuation there with Owen?
No.
I think if you're asking that, you know the answer to that question. This lady is a pedophile. I don't care what anybody says. She wanted that boy. She was jealous her daughter had that boy. She wanted everything that Owen offered. Status, love, I guess. She actively talked about the ways that she wanted to sleep with this child. This lady is sick in the head. I don't think Maine did a lot of things right. I think he coddled her during this conversation. And I guess I understand it because he needs a confession, but like, hold her accountable. I think that if a man had been doing this, they would have treated this completely different. I think Kendra deserved to have her feet held to the fire, and I don't think anybody did that at any point besides Sean, and people are even criticizing the way that Sean did it, but we'll get into that. But anyways, Kendra denies the allegation that she has an infatuation with Owen with this weird smile on her face and says that it's nothing like that. It's exactly like that, actually, and the weird smile you have on your face is not helping your case. Maine tries to gently coax her into confessing by lulling her into a false sense of security, by saying like, you know, we all do hard things and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Kendra then claims that the very first messages that were ever sent were not her. She says someone else did it, but a year later, she picked the messages back up.
The first ones didn't start, like, with me, but then I, like, fed off of it some.
Be fucking for real.
Why would we believe that? Lauryn has no idea that Kendra was behind it, and Kendra says that she doesn't want Lauryn to know she did this. Kendra tries to manipulate the officer into agreeing to keep this a secret, and trying to make it seem like she just wants to protect Lauryn. Two things here. If you just wanted to protect Lauryn, you would have never done any fucked up shit like this. You crazy, sick and twisted. You would have never done that. Second thing, the fact that she thought she could manipulate the officer into covering up her crime shows that she actively knew she was being manipulative and lying and thought that it would work on this man as well. At this point, she denies having any other devices. Then, at Kendra's request, the officer brings Lauryn into the room to loosely tell her that the person who has been tormenting her for years is her mother, the same person who has been comforting her throughout the years of torment. I can't imagine how much of a mind that was to hear the person who's always supposed to look out for you, the person who's always supposed to care for you, your ride or die, is the one who is telling you to die. Officer Maine then speaks to Lauryn with Kendra right beside her. He beats around the bush. He doesn't say exactly what is going on, but gives just enough information to where Lauryn can understand that her mom is the one behind all of this. And he says that Kendra just got wrapped up in some stuff. She didn't start it, but she continued it. As soon as he says that, Kendra immediately gets up and begins hugging and touching all on Lauryn.
Mom got wrapped up into some stuff. We found some evidence. Sometimes when we're not thinking straight, we do some things that aren't right. I just want to be honest about it, all right?
This made me extremely uncomfortable because, again, this is just a clear sign that she is still trying to activate that manipulation that she's been practicing for years and years and years. Officer Maine then says that when you aren't thinking straight, you do things that aren't right. Don't get me wrong, I'm no saint. I have done a lot of things that could be considered awful. Never have I ever catfished my child and wanted to sleep with my child's boyfriend and talked about, I'm gonna make him cream.
Electric chair.
I almost threw up in my mouth.
Officer Maine then says that he believes that Lauryn didn't have anything to do with this, but he has to make sure that Kendra and Lauryn are both safe before he leaves, so they need to call her dad, Sean. This I appreciated because at this point you don't know what Kendra is capable of. Had they have left her alone at any point, who knows what she would have done to herself or to her daughter. Lauryn calls Sean and Officer Maine tells him it's over. Sean is very excited, thinking they're about to be able to move on with their lives. He's like, finally, I've been waiting for this. My daughter can be free. We can be free from the shackles. All of this is ruining my marriage. And then the bomb is dropped on him that the person behind it all was his wife.
And I'm like, are you for real? I said, this is my fucking wife doing this?
Sean immediately rushes home, and when he gets home, Sheriff Maine is waiting for him outside. He explains how they found out it was Kendra, they had a warrant, they took her phone and her computer. Sean interrupts him and he says, which phone did you take? Because she's got a couple of them.
I asked him, what phone did you take? She's got a couple of them.
You done lost your damn mind.
What? We then find out that Kendra is facing about 5 different charges, but the most serious of which is felony stalking. We then also find out that she lost both of her jobs and she hasn't had a job for over a year. Sean says she hasn't had a job for over a year. Kendra told him that she quit, but Maine says that he knows from an inside source that she was fired. Sean is just in complete shock, utter disbelief, but when they head into the house, that shock seems to shift into rage and anger, and I can't say I blame him. Kendra is very hesitant to give up her other devices, and it seems like she's trying to walk back the confession she just made now that Sean is home and in her face. She eventually tells them where the other devices are hidden, and they get them. Sean confronts her about her lies with Ferris, and he says that if she isn't honest now, he will probably blow a gasket and go to jail his damn self.
Tell me the truth.
It's time to get it off your shoulders.
If I blow a gasket when we leave, I'll probably go to jail. So tell me now.
Kendra then confesses that she was let go from her job and she doesn't have her Texas job either. A lot of people were criticizing Sean and the way that he handled all of this. He is trying to process the information the same way everybody else is. Him asking about the jobs, it's because they had been evicted 4 different times in the past 2 years, and he's thinking she's paying all the bills, he's thinking she's working, he's not understanding why they're in so much financial struggle, and now it's all making sense. I also feel like he didn't want to get on Kendra's case in front of Lauryn about the things that she said to Lauryn and Owen because he's still trying to protect his daughter. So while I think there are fair things that you can say about Sean, the trust that he had in his wife, I understand why he reacted the way that he did. But Sean is pacing around their living room, very clearly upset, and Lauryn is sitting there clearly just trying to process everything unfolding in front of her. Sean then says very bluntly, Kendra, you gotta get up out of here. Tonight. You gotta leave now. Your evil, lying ass can't stay here. Between the houses, the lies, and now Lauryn is caught up in the middle, this is not good.
Okay, you need to go somewhere tonight. I don't know where you gotta go, but she's gotta go. This is it. I can't do this anymore. The other house, this house. Now I know what the truth is. And having her in the middle, this is not good.
As soon as he says that, I think it gave Lauryn the ability and the opportunity to really shed how she was feeling and uncover that mask, and she breaks down. Kendra immediately goes to comfort Lauryn while saying she does not want to leave. Girl, we don't give a damn about what you want to do. We don't care. We actually don't give two Get out of here. And it seems like Sean is making it very clear to her, like, you have to leave or I'm gonna harm you. Like, I'm gonna do something to you. You need to get out of here for your safety, for your well-being. I'm trying to help you. Get out. Sean tells her she needs to call her parents. She says, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to leave.
You need to go. You need to call your parents. No.
Sean, let's leave for a second, please. I can't leave her.
She refuses to call her parents, so Sean calls them himself, while Kendra is clearly trying to manipulate the situation and continue to manipulate him in the process. Kendra says that she can't leave Lauryn while kissing and hugging all on her. Now you're concerned about your daughter, but for the past 2 years, you weren't concerned at all.
I don't want to go with them.
They're going to prison.
Sean then steps back inside, says that her parents are on the way to pick her up. He will explain to them what's going on once they've arrived, but there is absolutely no way Kendra can stay in the house with them. He's very clear about this. Sean says that they need time apart to protect Lauryn and also make sure that she doesn't have to go away.
I need to stay with her.
We gotta get some time apart.
Officer Maine then apologizes to Lauryn before heading out. Okay, I know I had a lot of criticisms of this process, but I will say the one thing I'm thinking about right now is the fact that they left Lauryn in the house with the person she just found out had been manipulating her for years, who had been tormenting her for years. They left no support. They left nobody to help Lauryn process this and deal with this. They just executed the warrant and then left. And I think for me, this is why I'll always be like team community care over team cops, because Lauryn deserved better in that moment than to find out that way, be alone with her mother and police officers in finding out the same police officers who thought she was a suspect, and have her mom hugging and touching all on her while trying to process this information. Lauryn was told the news in a very insensitive way, a way that didn't consider her feelings in the midst of it. However, news of Kendra's guilt spread like wildfire. Owen remained quiet as his parents told him as he was in shock, But in the documentary, he says that the news sent his head spinning. He, like many others, were wondering how a mom could do such a thing to him, but mainly her own daughter. Paige and Cliff, one of the twins, said that she felt used. Khloe and her friends screamed in relief because Kendra's confession finally cleared their names. Lauryn says that her shock turned into sadness and then anger and then just this overwhelming feeling of craziness. She doesn't understand why her mom would do this. She's having a hard time understanding, and she's ultimately confused, even to this day. And I think I would be confused for the rest of my life if my mother did something like this. I think, to me, Kendra and that woman on the Paul and Katie episode who catfished as her daughter, they occupy the same space in my brain. They're jealous of their own child, and they're using their child as a way to fulfill their desire to be with little boys. Disgusting. Like, they should be far, far away from children for the rest of their lives. Sean breaks down in an interview that was featured in the documentary in absolute disbelief that Kendra would do this to the daughter she claims to love, a literal child, her child.
I just can't believe she'd do something like that to her daughter that supposedly she loved dearly. It just makes me sick.
Jill was also in disbelief that Kendra confessed to it all. She was feeling disgust and ultimately betrayal because they had been friends. They got really close, trying to figure out who this was. Meanwhile, she was doing the evilness all along. I was shocked to see that Kendra chose to participate in the documentary, and at the beginning, she was going along with it. She was acting like, yeah, like they weren't doing enough for my kid, and they wouldn't have had to do anything if you hadn't done this to your child. So when addressing her actions in the documentary, Kendra cries and says that she doesn't know why she did what she did. And in my mind, this whole scene is just her trying to manipulate the crew by making them feel sorry for her.
Sorry.
The way she talks about the situation as if she's so far removed from it, like she is talking about the actions of someone else rather than talking about the actions of herself. She says that it was a hard day when the warrant was served, but at the same time, it was an end. Kendra, this then tries to manipulate and justify her actions by quoting Hannah Montana and saying that everybody makes mistakes.
Every single one of us makes mistakes.
Is you stupid? Is you dumb? Pick a side.
With this goofy ass smile on her face, she says, no one lives a perfect life. Everyone has broken the law at one point or another and not got caught. She then equates what she did with driving drunk and not getting caught.
Not a single one of us has lived a perfect life. A lot of us have probably broke the law at some point or another and not got caught. I mean, I'll be honest, you know?
Lady, has nobody ever told you that 2 wrongs do not make a right? Also, catfishing your child, harassing your child, telling your child to kill themselves, talking about the sexual things you want to do with a 13-year-old boy, not the same as drunk driving. At all, not even close. But Kendra says, if you get caught for drunk driving, then you are in the same situation she is in, but for a different thing. So people need to keep that in mind. Get off your high horse. You don't get to tell anybody what they need to keep in mind after you did this to your child. Yeah. You're sick! Kendra then says that people see her as a villain because they only know one piece of her story. No, they see you as a villain because you are. In fact, you might be the leader of the villains. Kendra then sticks by the claim that the first messages sent around Halloween were not her, but when the messages picked back up a year later, those were in fact her. She claims that she was thinking things like, how long do I let this go on? What do I do as a parent?
In my mind, I'm like, how long do we let this go on? What do I do as a parent?
How long do you let it go on? You're the one doing it. You should have never done it in the first place. There should have been no question of, how long do I let this go on? You never do something like this in the first place. She claims that she wanted to get to the bottom of whoever sent the initial messages. That's why she started harassing Lauryn and Owen. She claims that she was hoping that Lauryn and Owen would out their suspects and that they would mention somebody who would help her pinpoint where the messages are coming from. What the fuck are you talking about? The messages came from you.
I'm about to have one of those moments.
I want to know where the messages are coming from. They're coming from you. You know they're coming from you. She then says that she just wanted answers, but then things spiraled and she couldn't stop.
I started in the thoughts of, we need some answers. And then it just kept going.
Typical catfish. She claims that she was someone else in those moments and she was in an awful place mentally. Blah, blah, blah. Don't care. Don't care. Don't care at all. Kendra then says that she let the catfishing consume her, whether it be for an hour a day or 8 hours a day. We are then shown some more of the absolutely awful messages she was sending her own daughter, saying that Lauryn is worthless, she should kill herself. Then the sick ones saying that his and fingers, my and mouth making me creamy.
A girl.
Lauryn says she doesn't believe that her mother didn't send the first few messages, and Officer Maine says he also believes that Kendra sent all the messages. Now you believe it. But when they told you, hey, maybe you should look into her, you said, nah. Nah. Kendra then says, and she doesn't say it in these exact words, I'm paraphrasing, that tormenting her child was an escape for her and took her out of real life. She says she wasn't herself when doing that. I think that's exactly who you were, and you didn't think anyone was going to find out it was you. So that's why you said and did those things. I think that's exactly who you are. And now you're trying to act like that's not who you were. Even when she was hiding that it was her, there were so many instances that I mentioned previously of inappropriate behavior between Kendra and the other children at the school. This lady continually had inappropriate relationships and nobody clocked it because they're like, she's grieving. She's going through a lot. Like, she's trying to deal with this with her child. That doesn't justify the things that she was doing, even before they knew that she was the catfish. The thing that gets me is Kendra then admits that she was purposely targeting Lauryn's insecurities in the messages, talking about her looks, her appearance, her weight. These are things that Lauryn confided in her that she was insecure about. And in turn, her mom went and decided to harass her and bully her about those exact same things and then show those messages to her classmates. But then Kendra says that the messages weren't actually targeted at Lauryn's insecurities.
Lauryn knows she's petite, she knows she's small, she knows she's thin. I might have kind of picked up on some of her insecurities. The messages weren't really targeted at her.
What the talking about? What are you talking about? Kendra then says that she was never worried that Lauryn was going to hurt herself. It's strange that everybody except for Kendra seemed concerned that Lauryn was going to hurt herself. Kendra also claims that Sean was not in the dark about finances. She says, sure, she could have been more responsible, but they were both aware of their struggles and they didn't do things in time to rectify the situation. Why the First, why are you even addressing that? No shade, but the finances would be the last of my concern if I were her. Oh, well, Sean knew. Are you going to address the fact that you said you wanted to sleep with your daughter's 13-year-old boyfriend? No? Okay. All right. Cousin Melissa then brings up one of the messages Kendra sent saying he wants sex, BJs, and making out. Owen doesn't like Lauryn because she doesn't give him BJs. She says that at the time the message was sent, they were 14 years old. Lauryn had no business doing that. I doubt Owen was even pressuring Lauryn to do this, okay? But Melissa says that the messages gave Kendra a false sense of being needed. Melissa says it is very hard to escape the grips of Kendra's manipulation while you are still actively talking to her. She is absolutely right about that. We saw that play out in the body cam footage, the manipulation that Kendra was still trying to exude on her child, on her husband, even the police officers. And I think that is also a part of why Sean told her she needed to get the hell out of there, like ASAP. Kendra was arrested in December of 2022. After the arrest, Lauryn was seen clearing out her locker. She then finished sophomore year in online school at home. I understand why she didn't want to be at school, but I think this is so unfair because her mother's actions are now causing her to miss out on things that she has every right to experience. Once Kendra's mugshot was posted, everyone was shocked. Like, the people who I guess weren't in the inner circle didn't know what was going on. And of course, in the small town, it became the hot topic of conversation. It made national and international news, and the superintendent even did interviews talking about the situation and the case like it was a hot piece of gossip.
Even when we realized that it wasn't a kid, we weren't expecting that it would be a parent.
Is no one thinking about the children? This is why earlier I said I'm not really a big fan of his, because I would not be going and doing interviews about this. I wouldn't be like, we had no idea it was her. We were so shocked to find out it was her. Are you not thinking about the children? Are you not thinking about the people who suffered because of her? You're just going out there and kikiing and yup. It was funny. It was, oh my God, shocker. You suck. Let me calm down. I clearly have smoke for all the adults involved in this situation. However, I feel particular smoke for this superintendent
because in my opinion, his job was supposed to be doing what's in the best interest of the children, protecting the children, even after Kendra was charged and arrested. So I don't see how doing interviews to talk about that is beneficial to the children in any way, shape, or form.
So Kendra was eventually hit with 5 charges. She was banned from having contact with the victims throughout the trial, including Lauryn. The courts were trying to give Lauryn the opportunity to free herself from the shackles of her mother's abuse, control, and manipulation. Kendra was not having this, and she fought for the no contact order to be lifted so she could speak to Lauryn, and Lauryn even submitted letters to the court saying she wants contact with her mother. A lot of people were faulting her for this decision. I'm not faulting a child for wanting their mother. It's a very natural thing for a child to want their mother. Her brain is not fully developed, so I am not expecting her to make those decisions, hence why she has her father trying to protect her, because she does not really know what's best for her in this moment. She wants her mother, and that is in part because of the manipulation that Kendra did on Lauryn to make Lauryn feel like she cannot survive without her. This woman honestly has no business ever having contact with this child, let alone immediately after and while it's supposed to go through the trial. In an interview that was clearly shot closer to when all of this had initially happened, Lauryn said that she doesn't feel like herself without her mom in her life. And I think this is just evidence of the manipulation and the hold that Kendra had on her rather than reflecting how she truly feels. Instead of taking it to trial, Kendra eventually pled guilty to 2 counts of stalking a minor, 1 count for Lauryn and 1 count for Owen, in spring of 2023.
I think a big reason why she took the plea, not necessarily because she felt she was guilty, but because she probably would have served a lot more time had she not taken the plea, but also taking the plea allowed her to, at least in her mind, control the narrative and control how she wanted others to view her a little bit. And I think that this is made very clear by the speech that she made at her sentencing.
Everybody in town went to Kendra's sentencing. The courtroom was packed. Kendra spoke, and Jill says that Kendra was very convincing. Again, that manipulation. At her sentencing, Kendra said, "I am sorry for my behavior to Owen McKenney and his family. I am sorry for my behavior to Khloe Wilson and her family. I am sorry to my daughter Lauryn and husband Sean.
I am sorry for my behavior to Owen McKenney and his family. I'm sorry for my behavior to Khloe Wilson and her family. I'm sorry to my daughter Lauryn."
Can we just talk about the order of the apology for a second? Even in the order of the apology, she followed the social hierarchy, putting the McKinneys at the top and her own family at the bottom. The obsession with Owen is seen even in the way she apologized because Owen was first. Your daughter should be first. Not that your apology means jack shit, but your daughter should have been first, not Owen. And why did Khloe come before your daughter?
Quickly.
Kendra says that after extensive work with a counselor, she now understands she has a mental illness. Depression, anxiety, suppressed childhood trauma, including sexual abuse. She claims that she was unaware that she was in crisis for many years. It was a blessing that she got caught because it forced her to stop. Lots of people suffer with depression, anxiety, suppressed childhood trauma, sexual abuse, and they don't do this. Right? She says that if she could go back and undo everything, she would do so in a heartbeat. Womp, womp, womp. Don't care. It's clear to me that this speech was just her trying to manipulate the courtroom and manipulate the judge into giving her a lighter sentence and to make people forgive her for what she did, when I don't think she's deserving of forgiveness in this particular moment, when she's still not taking full accountability for what she did. She is just making excuses as to why it is acceptable to hurt children, why it is acceptable for her to desire a child sexually, and why it was okay for her to hurt her child particularly. Owen and Jill both spoke at sentencing as well, and this was their only chance to air their grievances because no trial occurred. At one point in Jill's speech, she looks directly at Kendra and asks her if it was worth it. Was it all worth it?
Was it worth it? Was all of this worth it?
For whatever reason, when I first saw this, when I saw it for the second time, it sent shivers down my spine and made all my goosebumps come up. And I couldn't exactly tell you why, but that's something that really stuck with me. When it came down for the actual sentencing of it all, the judge says, in short, that it was a horrible case, tells Kendra she earned herself a prison sentence. Those were his exact words.
You've earned a prison sentence.
She was then sentenced to 19 months in prison, which is the high end of the sentence guideline. While in prison, Kendra actually wrote a letter to the author of the Cut article. She was thanking the author for seeking her side of the story and said she would be ready to talk after her release, only to never be heard from again. I'm assuming she didn't speak to this author in particular because the Netflix documentary was coming out, so she would have a chance to actually like speak her piece face to face. I think she probably thought she could control the narrative a little bit better if she did that. But Kendra said in this letter, I do ask that you truly think about the kids that are involved in this situation, including my daughter, who is trying to move forward and has a bright future ahead of herself. How are you asking other people to do that and you didn't even do that?
You stupid.
Kendra claims that these stories are doing additional harm to her. I can handle the pain, but she cannot, and she does not deserve it. You should have thought about that when you were doing what you did. Also, notice how she's still trying to step in and play the hero here. My daughter can't handle it, but I can. I can be the strong one for the both of us. Punch-ups. She deserves punch-ups. Kendra then continues by saying she doesn't deserve to be in the spotlight anymore or have any more people thinking her mom is a villain, as that is hard mentally and emotionally for her. She said, you shouldn't think of me as a bad guy because that's really hard on Lauryn. Like, you shouldn't think about me negatively because that's really hard on my daughter.
Oh, P.U.
Manipulation goes crazy. Kendra is insane. When school admin found out that Kendra was behind it, they said that to them, this was clearly a cyber Munchausen's case. Munchausen's is a mental health disorder in which patients feign or purposely induce medical problems. The motive of Munchausen's is partly to gratify an emotional need, to gain support and attention, usually reserved for those who are sick. The behavior quickly becomes addictive and compulsive. I think most people think of Munchausen's, they think of Munchausen's by proxy, which is what happened with Gypsy Rose and her mother. According to the Cut article, Munchausen's experts think the digital variety will become the most common sort of the illness, with an update to the DSM acknowledging that Munchausen's can play out partially or entirely online. A 2017 study showed Alabama researchers predicting the trend could lead to parents cyberbullying their own child in the same way some parents feign illnesses in their child to satisfy their own psychological needs. This played out in this situation because Lauryn would come home upset about the messages. Kendra got to play the hero. It made her feel better. She liked the attention. The attention in her mind meant that they were moving up in the social status. So it was all a win-win-win for her until they got caught.
It is also possible that Kendra was feeling unfulfilled emotionally in her marriage. So the same way that boy moms will kind of make their sons into their life partners, I think she was attempting to do that with Lauryn once she realized that Lauryn was going to have a life of completely of her own. There's so many different things that tie into this, but I think this also played a part.
Boyer says that he believes the motive, Kendra's motive, was to keep her child close to her and eliminate threatening relationships. The text started in the 7th grade, an age where most girls begin to pull away from their moms. And not just pull away from their mothers, you gain a new level of independence, you start to come into yourself, and I think Kendra was scared of that. One of Kendra's lawyers stated that Kendra didn't send the first text messages, but she saw how they made everyone rally around her family, so she continued, and then it got out of hand. I think she realized that she could get away with saying awful things to her child and talking really about how bad she wanted that boy, and it would give her and her family more sympathy, and it would allow her and Jill to bond and be cool and copacetic and best friends, thus moving her up in social status. But regardless of how it all started, Kendra realized that an anonymous catfish or bully would give Lauryn and Owen a common enemy. It would bring attention to her usually reserved child. It would boost Kendra's social positionality, distract from financial problems, and occupy her newfound free time because she's jobless. I also think that Kendra was a little bit jealous of Lauryn and Owen's relationship. As stick with me, okay? Stick with me. As crazy as that sounds, I think she was jealous of their relationship, and I think she was envious that her husband didn't have that social status. Her husband wasn't like Owen. I think that's what it came down to. She was jealous, and she wanted to try to replicate that for herself, while also trying to I think she was trying to sabotage the relationship, but at the same time, she was also trying to push them closer together for the way that it would benefit her, and so she could vicariously live through her child. Jill believes that Kendra became obsessed with Owen.
I think she became obsessed with Owen, which is hard, being a mom and that she's a grown woman.
And she wanted to have a romantic relationship with that boy, which obviously is unacceptable at her age. Owen says it felt like she was attracted to him. She would offer to do things for him, and she would even cut up his steak for him. Like a 14-year-old boy doesn't know how to use a knife.
It wasn't like it was like my girlfriend's mom. Felt like it was something more. She would cut my own steak for me. Like it was just to the point where like it was almost too weird.
She glorified Owen. She idolized him. She put him on a pedestal. She would do any and everything for him, to be around him, to be noticed by him. She would randomly text him as herself, like as Kendra, even after Lauryn and Owen broke up, to maintain some sort of connection. And she even continued to attend all of Owen's sporting events with or without Lauryn after they broke up. Kendra claims that she is very disappointed in herself. She let her family and herself down. But she says that that time frame in life is not who she is as a person. It's not who she is today. You're right. You're worse. I think you're a worse person than we even know. That's what I think. Kendra says that family means a lot to her, and she and Lauryn have always been close. But as Lauryn started to get older, Kendra's suppressed trauma began to resurface. She says that when she was 17 years old, she was raped. As Lauryn became a teenager, she became scared, and she didn't want Lauryn to also experience any form of sexual assault. She says that this led to her not knowing how to handle things, and she began reliving what she was going through while wanting to protect Lauryn by trying to control the outcome of her journey. She wanted to protect her, she wanted to keep her safe, she wanted to keep her close. There was a fear of letting her grow up because of what could happen to her. I think that Kendra outed herself when she said this.
I wanted to try to control the outcome of her journey.
It was about the control. If she had, and I don't know if she did or she didn't experience any form of SA. However, it's fairly common. I believe it's like the stats are 1 in 4 women or girls will experience it. So I believe that she's a liar, but do I believe she's lying about that? No. I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt that one single time, just because the stats show that it happens more often than not. Anecdotally, I think most women I know have experienced some form of SA. Even if that's the case, most normal people, most normal women, most normal mothers will go and get help. They'll go and get help. They're not going to catfish their daughters and act like they want to sleep with their man. I think Kendra felt that she was robbed of an experience that Lauryn was getting, and that's why she did it. I don't think it has anything to do with her trauma. Personally, just my opinion. Lauryn questions every day why her mom said the things she did, as does everyone else, but they are aware that it's unlikely they'll ever get the true answer, the true reason. Owen does not speak to Lauryn and has no intentions of reconnecting. It seems like he holds some sort of grudge or animosity towards Lauryn that I don't particularly think is valid. However, you are allowed to process and heal in whatever way that you choose. I can understand why seeing Lauryn or talking to Lauryn would be a reflection of the trauma and that hard time. It would just be like a symbol of that. I can get that, but holding a grudge against her does not particularly seem fair in my opinion. Khloe says that she doesn't blame Lauryn or hold any grudges against her, but it's clear that her parents do. Her parents say that Khloe missed out on what should have been some of the best moments of her life, but people were blaming her and she was just not believed for not doing this. Her parents also blame Jill. They make it seem like it's her fault that Khloe was ever a suspect. Meanwhile, Khloe was a suspect because she was seen as a bully and because of what Kendra did. It wasn't Jill's fault. But they also blame Mike Main because they told Mike fairly early on in the investigation that they suspected Kendra was behind it, and Mike did nothing with that lead. Khloe's mother, Tammy, then says that she told multiple people that Lauryn and Sean were going to play victim, like they had no clue what's going on and they're going to get away with it because Mike Main didn't do his job and investigate them.
Sean and Lauryn are going to play this off like they were the victim in this shit, and they're going to get away with it because Mike Main didn't do his job and investigate them.
Her husband then gushes about how proud of her he is.
I'm proud of her for that.
I kept that good. That's good.
How are you mad that the people who were victims are acting like victims because they are victims? How does that upset you? I don't particularly understand that. Like, Khloe is a victim in this situation. She's a victim, but not a victim of Lauryn or Sean or Jill. She's a victim of Kendra. Kendra is the one who acted like Khloe was responsible and started pointing all the evidence towards her. Kendra is the one who did this. Having any anger for Lauryn or Sean or Jill seems like a bully mentality to me. Oh, well, how could he not know? Nobody knew. Nobody knew.
Like, people definitely had their suspicions, and towards the end, even Lauryn was questioning her own mother, thinking that her own mother was behind it, but nobody knew for sure, so I don't understand why they're so angry at everybody except for Kendra.
At the Wilsons' 2024 Halloween party, Tammy dressed up as a scarecrow in a prison jumpsuit using a mask of Kendra's mugshot with phones clutched in her hands. This to me is bully behavior. I have to say it. I have to say it. It seems like Khloe learned how to act like that from her parents, which is an awful thing. Tammy questioned whether the family should throw a watch party of the documentary upon the release, as if she wasn't just claiming that this situation was traumatic for her family and her child. Now she's like, yeah, let's have a party. Let's watch it. Let's celebrate. You're weird for that. Lauryn says that she tries to put things aside and wants to have the relationship with her mother that she wants. She says that she enjoyed speaking to her when she was in prison. They would email back and forth. And we see one of these emails where Kendra says, "Hello, curly monkey head. I'm mad at you. You made me sad. You only said bye. You didn't say I love you, sad face. I forgive you, smiley face. I love you. Have a fantastic day." A combination of fantastic, awesome, and terrific. I think Lauryn felt safer and felt good speaking to her mother when she was in prison because she knew that her mom wouldn't really be able to hurt her. While in prison, Kendra made Lauryn feel like everything was better.
I liked communicating with my mom while she was in prison. She made it seem like everything's better.
We then see more messages from Kendra to Lauryn while she was in prison. In my mind, she is still acting like the catfish in these moments. She is sending messages to manipulate and get what she wants, but instead of being mean this time, she's being nice. Same behavior though. Kendra was released from prison in August of 2024. Sean had divorced her by this time and received full custody of Lauryn. Thank God. Kendra is currently living with family near Detroit, and she is allowed even less contact with her daughter now than she was allowed in prison. Thank God for that too. Lauryn and Sean have gotten a lot closer since all of this has happened, and it seems like the manipulative relationship she had with Kendra is now being replaced with a genuine relationship with her father, who truly loves her and is so incredibly proud of her, and even gets choked up when talking about how proud of her he is.
She's growing, and it's unbelievable. She's just growing up to be a beautiful woman.
In an interview that was clearly shot closer to the date of release for the documentary, we see that Lauryn is much more comfortable, she's much more confident, but she is also much more hesitant to reconnect with her mother in any way. She tells us that she is not allowed to see her mom now that she's out of prison. She wants to trust her, but she doesn't think she can.
I think I want to trust her now, but I don't think I can.
She wants her to get the help she needs, so when they do see each other, things won't go back to how they were before. Kendra says that they both know that they are with each other no matter what, and she is convinced that they can have a healthy relationship and hold the bond they have close. This bitch is delusional. Lauryn, Owen, and Khloe graduated from high school in May of 2025. Khloe signed a college volleyball deal, Owen graduated as homecoming king and made an amazing catch for a touchdown during the state football final, and Lauryn plans to pursue criminology in college. According to the director of the Netflix documentary, Lauryn, now 18 years old, is entering a new chapter. She is at the beginning of figuring out that she can be the one in charge, she can make all the decisions for herself and for her relationship with her mother. She also spoke on Sean and Lauryn's deepening relationship, and she says it's so wonderful to see them together. It's a great outcome of something so tragic and terrible that you see this really loving, really respectful relationship that the two of them had. Thank God Lauryn has a father like Sean, who kicked Kendra to the curb and did everything that needed to be done to protect his child with the quickness when every other single adult in this situation failed the children. I swear to God, no one was thinking about the children. Now, I think there were a lot of important things that the documentary missed. I mentioned most of them throughout the breakdown and the explanation of the case. However, there are just some more things that I want to talk about right now. They failed to mention that everybody was getting suspicious of Kendra near the end of this, nearing the time that she got caught. Even Lauryn started to get suspicious and believe that her mother was the catfish about a month before the warrant was issued. Any suspicions of Kendra's participation were not taken seriously. I think that's a reflection of people believing there's no way that a mother could do this to their own child. But I still think they should have looked into her.
what I said.
I don't think the documentary dove deep enough into the clear sexual desire that Kendra had towards Owen and her obsession with him. They mentioned it briefly and then skipped over it. I think that that was a main driving force between what happened and why she did what she did. So I wish they would have talked about that a little bit more. The way that they cut up Lauren's interviews made it seem like Lauryn forgives her mother and wants a relationship with her, but the interviews that were done when she was in the pink shirt with the vest were closer to the actual time of all of this happening, and the interview that was done when she's in the gray hoodie, that was done after her mom was released from prison. It felt a little bit deceitful, dishonest to use most of the footage from right when it happened, when she's obviously going to long for her mother and she hasn't gotten the help that she needs to really understand what went on. I don't think that the documentary dove deep enough into the hierarchy of the town, which explains why Kendra was close with Jill and did anything to want to be close with Jill. I think it also explains why she got in between Lauryn and Owen. She was jealous of her daughter for getting the love, the acceptance, and the status that she would never get in this little town because she was always going to be seen as an outsider, whereas her daughter was accepted. I think they glossed over the fact that Khloe was a bully but didn't do this. It's interesting to me that they didn't have Officer Maine speak about his treatment of Adrianna when he spoke about the way that he talked to all the other kids. I don't think anybody really, except for Khloe's parents, ironically, addressed how terribly Officer Maine handled the case and how nothing was done until the FBI got involved. I think that there's a reason in these types of true crime cases that people closest to the victim are often the first suspects. It's that way for a reason. Officer Maine also offered no real advice or guidance for parents besides to block numbers, get new phones.
Trash.
And a lot of people were also very critical of Lauren's eyes and her pupils in the first interview. I don't think that's really fair because a lot of the lights that are used can make your pupils dilate. I also think it's possible she may have been on some sort of medication. I'm not going to speculate because why would I speculate about a child on medication? But after all of this trauma, I can understand why you would be on medication that could also cause her pupils to dilate. People online were suggesting that she has a drug problem, which just feels like a very unfair thing to do. In the documentary, I feel like they kind of misled people by suggesting that Officer Maine was the one who dumped Khloe's phone and the one who had the idea to dump the phone when it was really her father. I don't think in the documentary they talked enough about how often Kendra was at the school and her inappropriate relationships with not just her child and Owen, but with a bunch of other children. The school also tries to make it seem like they limited Jill and Kendra's involvement and presence at the school, but they actually let them run a sting operation in which they tried to set a trap for people who were stealing Lauren's belongings and destroying them, and they got to watch on the security cameras and nothing ended up happening of that. I think that it would have been really helpful had they used a real life comparison, such as the Amanda Todd case. I think that would have been helpful in not allowing Kendra to control the narrative that Lauryn was never really in danger of hurting herself. If they were going to use those clips of Lauryn expressing a desire to have a relationship with her mother, I think it would have been really helpful to explain from an expert perspective how and why Lauryn may long for that relationship, instead of just making it seem like, well, Lauryn forgives her, so we should all forgive her.
Be fucking for real.
I also think that they should have allowed an expert to explain Munchausen's by proxy and Munchausen's in general instead of the superintendent. I think that's just because I didn't really like him. Obviously, it's a documentary. It's a Netflix documentary at that, so a lot of things were dramatized and they left out a lot of things. It seems like the second half of the documentary was all about trying to give Kendra this redemption arc and explain her backstory rather than focusing on the real victims at hand. And I wasn't particularly a fan of that. I still have a series of questions that were not answered in the article or answered in the documentary. Neither of them addressed how Kendra was able to get the pictures that were taken, the phone numbers, and talk about things in the Catfish messages that Lauryn had not directly discussed with her, right? Sophie had mentioned that they would talk about things close to Lauryn and then it would show up in the text messages, but Lauryn never mentioned saying these things to her mother. So it's like, was she listening to them? Was she able to watch through their cameras? Was she able to hack into their accounts? What happened there? I want to know how Kendra walked out of prison unscathed. Her face looking just like it did when she walked in there. How'd that happen? No one wanted to beat her up? Violence solves a lot of things, I think, sometimes, especially in this situation. I want to know why Kendra did not apologize to all of the children and parents who got caught up in this, not just the ones who were the most popular. That's something a lot of other people aren't clocking either. She didn't apologize to Adrianna. She didn't apologize to Sophie. She drug all these people into it, and yet she only apologized to 3 families, with her own family being last on the list. I want to know why Kendra thinks it sounds more acceptable to say that she didn't send the first messages. Okay, if you didn't send them, who do you think sent them? And why? And also, people really think Lauryn had something to do with it, and I just think that's stupid. I'm saying it. I think you're stupid if you think the daughter had something to do with this. She's traumatized from this. Her boyfriend stopped speaking to her. He acted like she didn't exist. She had now all of her insecurities were magnified tenfold, because not only is her mother sending her these messages, now her mother is showing them to kids at the school. I don't think Sean had any idea, and I think Sean did everything that was necessary once he found out to protect his daughter. However, this whole case to me shows that people care more about a spectacle, they care more about a story than they care about actually protecting the kids who are in their care and their custody. The school should have done more. The parents should have done more. Officer Maine, get him out of here. He just stirred the pot and traumatized more children. This was a long one. This was long overdue. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you made it all the way to the end, put a bird and put a brain in the comments, because that's what Kendra is. She's a bird brain. She's a pedophile. She's a creep. And I don't feel sorry for her in the slightest. I feel sorry for her child. I feel sorry for her husband. But I thank you so much for being here. If you liked the video, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you are aware of every single time that I upload. If there's another series, another documentary you'd like to see me cover, you can drop it down in the comments below, or you can leave me a DM here on Instagram. I love talking to y'all over there. I thank you so much for being here. I thank you for your patience for the time that it took me to get this out, and I hope you enjoyed this much longer video.